I love you guys.
Dance off, bro. I have the high ground.
Expecto Patronum!
39 days, 20 people, 1 survivor. Tribe of Nerds.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tribe of Nerds. We are excited to have our second Survivor Winner interview with the winner of Survivor UK, Matthew Haywood. Matthew, welcome to the Tribe of Nerds.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to it. Just getting into all the nitty-gritty little bits and yeah, just talking to you three. It should be fun.
Yeah, super excited for Matt, Michael, and I to talk to you. All right, so to start it off, when did you start watching Survivor and how did you get on the show?
So my kind of Survivor experience started by playing the game. So my first experience of Survivor was to play the game. I just applied. I was at university at the time. It was just one night in my accommodation. I had heard of the show and I'd seen like little clips online, like little TikTok bits or whatever. But I just seen the application form, thought I've got as good a chance as anyone else, put it in and then the rest is history with that one really. Then since coming from the show, I have watched a few seasons. So I've watched Titans v Rebels, which was like the first season in full that I watched, which I think, like I was saying to Shannon on the other podcast, I think that's a great introduction to watching Survivor, which I thought was great. And then I'm currently watching Survivor 47 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so entertaining. I'm loving it. I'm loving being on this side of it. It was good being on the other side. It was a life-changing experience. But being on this side, watching it, after playing the game especially, is just amazing. So I'm well involved now in the Survivor community, I hope.
Yeah, we can give some more recommendations at the end or after. Like Titans versus Rebels and 47 are pretty solid to start with after yours.
Yeah.
Since you were newer to Survivor, what kind of prep did you do before you headed out to shoot the show?
So I was just thinking of kind of all different. I've realised you can never plan anything in this game. That's what I realised very fast. But what I was thinking was kind of what the type of what dynamics there'd be, what the people would be like. I'm a fan of like UK reality TV as well, so I do know the kind of like, for instance, Big Brother frowned upon to be strategic, frowned upon to talk about your nominations. I knew it's different in Survivor globally, but I also knew there'd be like a crossover in because it's Survivor, but it's UK reality TV, so it crosses. So I knew that like it would be like a likability contest as well as a strategic game. And I knew that you would need to be likable to stay in the game. So socially, I think I was prepared because I'm good at talking to people. It come up that I had lots of jobs in the show as well. So I think I've kind of been in lots of different situations under different people. So kind of going into that dynamic of being with 17 strangers was going to be good for me. So I was looking forward to that. And obviously the obvious, like I was learning to make a fire fast. And I was like doing lots of runs and stuff like that. Just really trying to be as fit as possible for it. Got humbled really fast when I got there with how intense these challenges were. Like jumping off that boat on day one, I got to the beach and you look around, you're out of breath, all you can taste is salt. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a long month and however long it was. So yeah, I was humbled fast, but I was ready to just like go in there, adapt. I didn't want to watch too much Survivor, and I know people might look at that and think, "Oh, typical." He's just saying that, but I actually didn't. I didn't want to be. I think sometimes being over prepared can set you up to failure, especially in what is the first season of like proper like UK the reboot of Survivor.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so the season opens on a barge and you're thrust into that first challenge. So how was it getting thrown straight into the action there?
It was really exciting because you have all this build-up. So we stayed in like hotels like a couple of weeks before. You're doing all the pre-game stuff, and you just at this point you're so desperate for just kind of public interaction that it's like you're ready to do anything. So it's like jump off this boat and you're like brilliant. It's like an ideal scenario. But it was just really exciting, like filming all the shots, kind of coming up to the boat. Like as a TV kind of fan myself, being in that environment was just so surreal, and they really did like credit to the production for just kind of building up the experience. It was kind of like as real as you could make. It's a TV show, obviously, but it's so real, and they really put us in the zone. couldn't meet anyone before it, didn't see anyone. So day one, kind of getting onto that boat, you're seeing the real reactions. But like I said, it had been a couple of weeks. You're ready to go and you're ready to play and you're ready to talk to people. And that was kind of essential to the show. So yeah, I was buzzing. I was really excited.
Did you have any reaction to Joel Damit? Like, what did you think of him right off the bat?
Yeah, so I really like Joel's personality, and I think there was many challenges in the show, and you don't even see half of because some of the challenges go on for hours, and he's obviously there for hours talking, so only little bits of it make it in. But I was constantly just in stitches laughing at some of Joel's stuff because his humour was it's so like silly humour as well. And I think when you're in these awful situations, maybe standing for a post for 3 hours or doing something like that, it really enlightens the situation. And Joel's got like a little smirk that he does, and I think if I've got the same type of little smirk, and if you connect with that, it was great. But when Joel come, he like come on a little speedboat around the boat, and it was the movie moment. It was just like, this is Survivor, and kind of the executive producer. So you have to obviously film a lot of shots on this boat because it's the big opening type thing. And one of the executive producers come on before we were about to jump off the boat, and she was like, sorry, if you're tired now and you think this is hard, it's only going to get a lot harder because this is Survivor. And that just made me kind of get goosebumps. And I was like, this is it. This is real now. And it was just mad. It's such a blur, but then it was such a long time being there, like day by day. But then looking back, it's a blur. It's mental. Yeah,
I bet. So you get off the boat and you get separated into the Katon Tribe.
Mm-hmm.
What were the early dynamics like on the Katon Tribe?
Yeah, so kind of being in the Katon Tribe, it felt like you couldn't. I knew I was talking strategy at the start, and I know looking back at the first few episodes, maybe you don't see me as much, and I understand they do kind of have to show everyone in the place, and I was there for a long time, and I get that. But I was really kind of trying to hold back as well and trying to read the room of who to talk about strategy to, who not to. I found I was socially in a very good place, kind of for the full game. And I'll give myself the credit for that. But so at first, me and Tanuk and Nathan were very solid, and I know it's shown they're kind of like Tanuk and Nathan, king and queen dynamic, which obviously they're going to show that because that comes to its place later on in the game and it plays out. But I had there a good solid relationship with them two. Me and Rachel, I'd like that kind of, it was kind of the mother and son thing that typically happens on like a reality show. But I think I also was so aware that was going to happen. Like I was saying to my family before I went out, there's going to be someone who's a bit of a mother role. They're going to have the youngest player in the game. They're going to take me under the wing. I'll let them do that. Like that was kind of my whole thing. I was saying to all the producers before I went in, I went, if they want to treat me as the youngest and underestimate me, they can do it because that'll be perfect for kind of the way I want to play this game. But yeah, OG Katon, I was in a very good position with everyone, but Shy, I had a conversation with Shy in the sea, and it's annoying that some things aren't shown because I think it really pieces together the puzzle of the game. Shy, he revealed to me very early on that he'd seen 50 seasons of Survivor or something mental, like 40-something seasons of Survivor. And to me, that was him putting a lot of trust in me and really dropping his guard of who he is. And I didn't go, to be fair, I do tell a lie. I think I told Rachel and Jess that information, but I didn't go blurting it out. Throughout the full game, I was so conscious with who I said what to. I would always make someone feel like they were my number one, but I would be so cautious at what information you give out because once information's out there, in everything in life, it's out there. So I was like, be really careful about what I say. So I found like Shy clearly thought he could like align with me, which I seen that, but I also knew that Shy wasn't really liked in camp. So it's sometimes like keep your friends close, your enemies closer. Love Shy now, but in the game that was the situation. Shy was very close with Lawrence. I had a good relationship with Lawrence and Shy on one side. I had a good relationship with like Lawrence and Tanuk. So credit to Lawrence, he was friends also with like multiple people. But I had a good relationship with Jess and Leilani and Rachel. So I was kind of just jumping from group to group, ready to pick where would be best for me to go. And I think, yeah, that was kind of it at first. So I was really, you had to be so careful about who you pulled for what conversation because everyone was quite friendly. Oh, everyone's on a beach. Look at this experience we're on. So I was very cautious about what I said to what person.
That makes sense. Yeah. That seems like a great position to be in, to have your fingers in a lot of pies.
That's what it is. Literally just as many pies.
So you lose the first immunity challenge, and
Yeah.
as you mentioned, Shy, he seems to be on the outs, but the target shifts to Richard. So kind of what went into that decision?
Yeah, so in that challenge, Nathan and Shy were holding two for like a long time. And so I give them so much credit for that because I was holding two for a short period of time than them, and it was hard. That was another challenge where it was just, every challenge was just so humbling throughout the full thing. It looks so easy, but like there's so many little things, like the way you have to grip it, you're not allowed to hold it certain ways, and it's all like in the rules and stuff like that. But Nathan and Shy were holding that for a long period of time, and they really bonded in that kind of, we were in the trenches together, we know how hard it was for each other. And when me and Richard, I was actually the one passed it to Richard, which it could have really sent the game the other way if maybe I dropped it, who knows. Me and Richard were passed it to each other, but what we kind of noticed when we got back to camp was me and Nathan had a conversation, and Nathan was very pro get Richard out at this point. Maybe because of the challenge aspect, that I know there was a lot of talk about strength of the tribes, but Richard gave it a bit of a, like he just flung his hand in the air as if like, I'll give up. So whether he actually gave up or whether he dropped it, because I know how hard it was, my hands were slipping, I could have easily dropped it. There's no chance you would have seen me throw it like that. It would have been, I would have flew forward with it. I would have died on that challenge, you know what I mean? I wasn't dropping it on the first challenge, but yeah, so that kind of led to Richard. There was going to the first tribal council, there was actually talks. There was talks with Richard, Shy and Leilani. Me and Leilani bonded really well in the first few days. Like we had some really deep chatting like day one, day two. So I didn't want to get rid of Leilani at the minute. And it was even Richard that said to me on day one, he said, everyone's talking about voting out Leilani, but obviously you're not going to vote out Leilani. She adores you. So I was like, check in my head. I thought, so Leilani's been speaking highly of me in conversations I'm not in. So I thought, why you're going to keep Leilani for my social benefit? I was wanting to get Shy out, you know. I had the knowledge. I was happy because my relationship with Shy was good. I also didn't like the knowledge he had. I was using the knowledge Shy was giving me to also kind of learn the game. But I was also ready to get rid of that at any point because I knew that it would get to a certain point in the game, and having Shy in there would eventually use the more knowledge he had in the game against me, maybe. So I thought I'll use this as much as I can. So I was happy to get Shy out, but I knew that in this first tribal council, it wouldn't be the right time. So Richard it was easy vote. It's always that first kind of what I've noticed. First boot, easy vote. Tanuk and Nathan and me were quite close. They were very pro Richard. And it all just kind of worked out to that. But there was other conversations happening in the camp. And I think a lot of people are kind of happy it's not their name in the first boot as well.
Yeah.
So it's easy. But obviously I watched Titans v Rebels. Wasn't the case. That kind of strong alliance of like physically strong players and that, which is refreshing to see as well. Like it's nice to watch. But in my situation when I was there, it was like, yeah, Richard. He was a funny guy, but he was very like jokey guy. Like he was very witty, and I'm not that witty. I'm quite like, I'm sometimes behind understanding the joke. So like Richard was very witty, and some people maybe didn't understand his jokes, but I got along really well with Richard as well. He was a nice, fun guy.
Yeah, maybe like for Shy being such a super fan, don't say you've seen every single second of Survivor.
No, 100%. No, I think I come into, like looking back at the season, like you look at like the likes of Rain, Shy, Tanuk even revealed early on she'd seen a lot of like US Survivor, and like you're taking these notes in your head, you're not really mentioning it. We were told as well not really to mention other series of Survivor in the show, so we couldn't say, oh, in Australia season, you know what I mean? So yeah, but I was just a bit, why would you reveal that you're such a big fan of the show? Like use the knowledge that you've got from being a fan.
Yeah,
to your advantage without saying that you're a fan. I just think there's completely, especially in this series, maybe if there's 20 seasons down the line, there's going to be a lot of fans. But now, why would you use that? It's more threatening to other players. Like people put the guards up fast that were super fan. But I knew that I could take knowledge. I wasn't so shut off. There was maybe some other players that see a super fan wanted to shut it down. I knew I could take bits of information, but it's also, you keep them at an arm's length, I think. And I know like you're all fans yourself, so no disrespect, but you would. I think in this first season you would, if someone revealed they were a fan.
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the show basically only showed Katon and how miserable life was at camp. So the big twist of the first twist of the season is when Lawrence goes to the outpost and comes back with a large fish. Were you guys just happy, or did you think that there may have been like something fishy about it, like maybe with an idol or an advantage, or not?
Yeah, so it was initially when Lawrence was kind of the chosen one, everyone was quite like happy for him to go and stuff. I was a bit worried in the fact of I didn't know it was maybe going to be something like that, but I just thought him going alone does give him some sort of advantage anyway, some knowledge, whatever it is. He gets extra knowledge by going there doing it, and I didn't want to be left behind with. You want to be in control with as much as you can, I think, and that was kind of out of my control. Lawrence going, there could have been worse people than Lawrence to go. I think Lawrence was okay for like my game. Like he knew the game. He's strategic. He's very well spoken. I love Lawrence. I can't lie. He's a great guy. Honestly, such a great guy. But yeah, he come back. Lawrence was. It was good that Lawrence went, but I was a bit concerned with him having a bit of knowledge over me. Like where everyone's trying to get knowledge, and he had a bit more. And then he comes back with this big fish. And I'll be honest, I didn't. He said the other option was to the group. He said like the other option was potato or cheese. Like I thought potato and cheese actually sounded like a good idea as well. I love potatoes and cheese. Like I thought that was such a good idea. Like I was just thinking, oh well, that would have been okay as well. So we could have probably brought potato and cheese back, and I'd been like, yes, Lawrence, love that from you. But I think like he pulled Tanuk for a chat, told Tanuk about the situation. But Lawrence, he speaks in riddles and he speaks in. And as we know further down the line with maybe the Tanuk vote, Lawrence isn't very like Lawrence will go left, right, he'll go up and down to get to the point sometimes. And I think he didn't explain it right to anyone, even the people who like confided in. So I didn't know what to believe. So it was only that challenge where we were running around the thing that I was close to the conversation between Chris and Lawrence. Like I was just straggling along, probably walking somewhere out the water. And I was listening to this and I was like, what do you mean a small fish? I was like, our fish. Chris was saying they were small. I was saying, well, ours was. It wasn't massive, but it good. It fed us. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't believe at the time. And then that's when stuff started to sort of unravel. But I was happy with the big fish. It done as well.
Yeah. Well, so after that, episode 4, after you go on a little bit of a winning streak, you do lose the challenge in episode 4, and this is where Katon goes to Tribal and sends Leilani over to Lenana. So what went into that decision to send Leilani over to the other tribe?
Yeah, so for that vote on that evening, it was going to be Leilani or Shy. And that night, I was so adamant to vote Shy out of the game. Mm-hmm. I was pushing it. I pulled Tanuk. I was like, Tanuk, we need to get Shy out of the game. I was saying to her, this is just going to come. The longer Shy stays in the game now, or especially over Leilani, I had to look at the two relationships, and mine and Leilani's relationship was the strongest. Leilani got up in camp. She must have maybe felt vulnerable, and this is. I'm quite good at reading people, and I think I'm really like emotionally intelligent as well. So I was seeing how Leilani got up, said that she wanted to be voted out of camp, and I just thought, like, why are you saying you want to be voted out? Is it to maybe save a bit of embarrassment if you are voted out? Like, are you just dropping your guard up? And I was thinking of it all, and I was just thinking, this is the perfect opportunity to get Shy out of the game. And Tanuk said to me, so what you're saying is to me is that we should blindside Shy. I was like, yes, we need to get Shy out of the game tonight. Perfect opportunity. And it would have been, I think it would be better it would have been good for my game doing that. But Leilani was so adamant, and then you get people like maybe like Rachel and Jess who maybe don't understand like maybe the dynamics of the game and stuff as much, where they were see Leilani saying that she's going to get voted out. It's an easy vote. I understand that as well. I see that, but I was adamant we needed Shy out of the game. I thought the longer it gets him in the game, that he'll find an idol, something will happen. So I wanted Shy out. Leilani kind of wanted to leave, but then I would never tell Shy, obviously, that I wanted him out, obviously. But then I would play to Shy. What I've done well, I think, throughout the game is I would go to Shy and I'd be like, Shy, yeah, it's obviously going to be Leilani. I played it all right with Shy, and I think I really built up a level of trust with Shy in the game where he seen me as his like number one, but also I was trying to get him out of the game at the time.
Right.
So, yeah, but it ended up just being Leilani, and I think it was more the fact that there was no winning. I couldn't get the votes to be anywhere else. Like, you really couldn't. And then it obviously, like, you see, I didn't want to be like the anomaly vote like Jess was maybe in the first vote.
Right.
And that was like my fear. Like, I think I was on the right side of every single vote. I knew what was happening. So I did, so early on to throw my vote would have really disrupted my game. So I ended up going to Leilani. Was quite happy though when it was going to the other tribe. When I was still between Leilani and Shy, but in tribal council, when it was like she's going to do a tribe, I was like, well, that's good for me. She's still in the game. She's going over there. And actually, Leilani, when I arrived in Lennon, obviously we'll probably get to that at some point, she like ran over and she shouted, "It's the best two. They've sent the best ones." And so Leilani was like building my game up for me in Lennon. So it ended up being a brilliant choice to send her over there, other than someone like to send Shy over there would be awful, because you would have, like, I reckon maybe you would have actually got voted out of there. Because Shy was maybe not the easiest person to live with. He was very like, poor Shy, because he can't articulate himself very well. I don't think in how he like maybe gives instructions. And I think a lot of people watched it and felt sorry for Shy, which it isn't nice to see someone kind of maybe be portrayed as like on the bottom by himself. But it was just the way he would like, maybe not very polite in the way like he would talk, just naturally in conversations, and very like when we're building the bed, there was a few arguments. And like, he's a lovely guy, but just can't maybe put forward how he's speaking. So I don't think maybe Shy would have done that well going to Lenene, but Leilani going there was the right choice at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you never know. He could have gone over and said, "They voted me out. I'm willing to join you and burn Katon." And
he would have knew what to say as well.
Game. Yeah.
Over Leilani, like Leilani kind of was saying one story and another story. She was just kind of like going along with it. But Shy would have like knew how to utilize that move for the best for him, for the better for him, I think.
So Calaton loses another immunity challenge and Rachel's voted out here in a 5-2 vote. So why was Rachel the best option here over Lawrence, who got the 2 votes, and obviously Shy, who was on the outs for the entire game?
Yeah, well, this was so like, as far as the game had got so far, this was the hardest vote for me. It was really like, I think it was the first time in like the voting confessional as well, and kind of you're seeing kind of a lot of emotion. I was a bit like, sorry, like it was so hard for me to vote Rachel in a way of, but I was adamant that Rachel needed to go because I built a really good relationship. She had a lot of trust in me. I think that's the great thing about Survivor. It's about building people's trust in you and then being able to cut them off. And some people don't have the ability to cut people off. I think it's so important to be able to cut people off at the right time. Timing's important. And I think when it was to vote Rachel, at this point, Rachel was kind of getting a lot of, I feel like she was getting really, she felt like she was in control of me in a way. I feel like I knew she wasn't, but Rachel thought that she had a lot of control over me. So when we were talking, there was a few chats we had on the bed before Tribal Council, and she was saying, we're going to vote this person off now, this person off next, this person off after that. I thought, you're telling me, you're not saying, are we going to do this? You're saying we're going to do this. So you're taking my vote from me and saying we're voting together. I thought, I can vote for who I want to vote for. And this is only we end up getting to a merge or something like this. And Rachel thinks she's always got me. And she's quite like, she was a likable character. She was like the mother hen of the group. And I just thought, I don't need someone who thinks they can, I don't need this right now. And Tanuk and Nathan and me, we were discussing this. We thought this was the right idea. I was just a bit worried about Jess, so we couldn't include Jess in that vote at all. But Rachel was so adamant that me and her were going to vote Lawrence out that night. Mm-hmm. She didn't know how close I was to Lawrence. And like, I think that's what happened to me a lot in the game. I think that people who thought that I was their closest alliance didn't know how close I was to other people. So I was getting every side of the information. So I was getting like, me, Nathan, Tanuk were talking about it. Me, Jess and Rachel were talking about who we were going to vote for. Me, Lawrence and Shy were. So it was like there was 3 twos. And there was Leilani as well, but like 3 twos at this point. And I was just jumping. I was like the 3 to everyone's 2. So I was getting all this information. And like looking back, it was all, I know you can only take it at face value at the time, but it was all the right information. So looking at the Rachel vote, it was what I wanted at the time. Mm-hmm. Because I know I'm saying about I wanted to get Shy out, but in this stage, it was just the right time. I think it was the right time for Rachel, as hard as it was. And I think I wanted to do something that was a little bit more difficult for me personally. I was ready to do it, like instead of keeping Shy in for the right reason. Shy was working better for me at the time.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you never want to like tell people how they should vote. You always want to like make sure they feel like they're involved in like the conversation, but like make them feel like they're kind of making the decision. Right. And I've got some really good knowledge when we go down to like the Doug vote and stuff later on that I'm excited to spill. And it's all about that, all about kind of making someone else make the decision, letting other people. Because I think I understand, and I completely understand this. I know what I'm saying with this. I didn't play a flashy game, big flashy game at all. Compared to like the Chris's, Doug's, etc., Tanuke, I understand that completely. But I do think
like the loudest person in the room. It's great entertainment for TV, and I get that, but it isn't always the best.
Right.
The best for like when you're there on the beach, because like we're there 24 hours a day for 35 days, and you see 16 hours, and it's like you really have to sometimes bite your tongue and let other people speak. And as long as you're judging the situation, I think that's important. As long as you're never complacent. I think some people got complacent and comfortable. I don't know, but we'll obviously get onto the beat that when the game kind of started to unravel later on.
Of course, yeah. Well, so then the tribe swap happens in episode 6, and you and Tanuk and Shy go to this summit, so to speak, and you and Tanuk end up switching to Lenena. So what did you think was going to happen, and what went into like the decision for you and Tanuk to swap over?
Yeah, so before the tree mail come in that morning, me, Nathan, and Tanuk were sat by the fire, just us three, and again, I think me, Nathan, and Tanuk were like a solid 3 from the start. But also I had up my other connections. But it was in a way where, because them two were so kind of maybe outspoken together with it, I was okay for people to not think I was in that solid. Like, I'm happy that they think they were a 2 and I was kind of a straggler. You know what I mean? It was better for my game. That's all. We were a solid 3, and we kind of pulled Jess into this conversation, and we were saying how we need to sit together now as a 4, kind of Lawrence and Shy can be the kind of minority, us 4 are the main 4 now. And we kind of pulled Jess in, but kept her at an arm's length as well, knowing that maybe, like, me, Nathan, and Tanuk had a lot of trust in the 3 of us. And then we were like, so the train mail coming, me and Tanuk went and picked it up, and we were saying, like, on the walk back to camp, we need to send, we called our alliance Pineapple Alliance or something like that. So the 4 of us had this alliance. Pineapple Alliance, we need to send, or everyone who goes needs to be from Pineapple Alliance to kind of get our control, stay in control, which would have been great. But then Nathan had this idea of it looking too obvious for sending Shy. And I just thought, like, oh, I don't know if it will. I don't know if it will look too obvious. Maybe, like, he'll be all right. Like, let's keep it us. But Nathan was adamant that we have to send, like, either Shy or Lawrence. So when it come to it, obviously me, Tanuk, and Lawrence went, but and Shy went. But I don't know what I expected it to be. I think I did expect it to kind of be like, we had the fish reward. Was it going to be like another dilemma? Maybe a little challenge between them where we're meeting them. But then you kind of knew, leaving camp on the way there, you start to get to grips with how serious, all I can say is with how long it took to kind of get to this place. You knew it wasn't just going to be a little outpost. And when we seen Joel, it was like, right, this is serious now. And then I knew it was going to be, then we instantly clicked. And Shy, like, he's seen like every season of Survivor. He knew it was going to be a tribe swap or something. Shy was sure, and I was like, oh, I don't know. But I was just happy that me and Tanuk were there as our solid alliance. And I was kind of as well, though, happy that Nathan wasn't there and that I had Tanuk to myself at this point, which I think was really good. Because I knew me and Nathan and Tanuk were strong as a 3, but I obviously didn't know what Tanuk was saying to Nathan in private. And they got along really well. It was like a bit of... They were really close sibling vibes. It was like they were siblings, like they would fight, they would like do gymnastics, like they were so like close together. And I just was happy to have Tanuk out on my own.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So Doug revealed on this podcast that he actually found the Katon idol when he was over there, but it had already expired. So did you spend much time looking for idols and advantages when you were on your tribes, or was that not really part of your gameplay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I'd say every single person was out looking for an idol at some point. Some people more than others, like especially like Shy at first. Lawrence spent like, I think you might say he had like a cave that he would always be down. Like there's a few naked shots of Lawrence down there. Well, he'd often just like lie in a cave down there, and I thought that was very suspicious. Always away from camp, and you can. It's the camp was a small place, but also like a big place. When the numbers whittle down, when someone's gone and they're not doing a confessional, you are kind of keeping track of them. So if someone's away, like Shy was away in the bushes, you'd always send someone to kind of like follow him, watch what he's doing, and. Yeah, people idol hunting, definitely. But then obviously Doug come with the great knowledge of where the idol was. Fair play to him. You've got to say, like, going to the same place.
Yeah.
Maybe it shouldn't have been in the same place. Because obviously it comes to this. And then the fact it's expired is quite... Like, it isn't that fun, really, for Doug. He should have had 2 idols. Like,
Yeah.
it's better for the game, really, but that's how it planned out. But yeah, poor Doug.
Poor Doug. Lenina loses. He shouldered the load challenge, and you were one of the players holding the load. How were you able to get the vote off of you and Tanuk and onto Ren?
Yeah, so initially going to Lenina, I obviously said Leilani ran over. She was so happy to see us. She was saying, Matty, I've been telling you I've been telling everyone like how good you are, how nice you are, how much you like get on with everyone. I was thinking, right, this is good. So Leilani's doing a bit of the work before I get there. Brilliant. So me and Tanuk said to each other, we're not going to speak in Lenina. We're not going to talk. We know each other. We know where each other's heads are at. Me and Tanuk, we're best mates in there. We're going to just split off and like maybe at night or maybe when it's like people are asleep, we'll just sit and chat and we can debrief maybe once every 2 days, which I thought was really fun. It was like being on some sort of like secret mission, kind of going there. So Tanuk mainly went to like talk with like Hannah. She connected really well with Hannah, connected really well. So I'm just giving a bit of like the dynamics of Lenina when I arrived. Me, Chris, Lee and Ashley, I seen them as like, at the time they were like Chris and Lee as well. I know there was so much like controversy between them. Them two were so close for the start of the game. Them two were so close friends. I got there and I seen them three and I thought these three will die for each other. Like I was like, right, I need to get in with these three. Got talking to them. Lee, obviously big loyalty-based player. Got talking to him. He seen me obviously as an asset maybe to the tribe. He liked me. And then Chris and Ashley, I seen the sneaky couple who I knew what their dynamic was, but also me and Chris connected really well at the start, which I don't think Tanuk and Leilani ever knew and ever seen. Me and Chris done it really well. Like most of our chats would be just like in bed at night, just chatting, like looking up into the sky where everyone was asleep. So we also didn't make our relationship, which is obviously a key relationship going forward. And yeah, it was just about making these big connections. But obviously, I do not know why Lenina would not have voted out me or Tanuk in that first. Realistically, like, it should be a guaranteed, like, vote off for one of us. But I'll be honest, my social status in that Lenina tribe was so strong, I wanted to go to tribal council. Not as much as Chris wanted to go to tribal council by throwing that challenge. Like, we were seeing him do it at the time, like the cartwheels and that. We weren't looking at it as if he was throwing the challenge. We were looking at it as if, like, what an idiot. Like, why are you doing like, we're sweating here, we're breaking our backs for this challenge. Why are you doing this? It just was like stupid in the moment to look. But then obviously when you see the full picture on TV, you're like, right, that's what was happening. But I wanted to go. So I mentioned this in my podcast with Shannon. I wasn't sleeping. Like I was on the bed and I was hanging off the bed. I had one arm on a tree. Like literally the full left side of my body was hanging off the bed. I had one leg on the bed next to Chris. And I thought, it's too cramped in here. And I thought, I can't come to this tribe and speak up and be a big personality. Oh, give me space in the bed. Give me more food at dinner. I just thought, bite your tongue for a few days. Someone will eventually get voted off if you play the game right, and then you'll get a better space in the bed. My position in the hierarchy will go up more. It depends who you're voting with. I just thought, and this will be okay for me. And Rem was perfect for kind of where I wanted to go, and the fact that Ashley and everyone was so keen. It was kind of, you're shocked. You're like, what? Like you've been living with Ren for so long. Why wouldn't you want to go for us? But ultimately, it was perfect for Man Tanuk. Like we seen goals when that was happening. We were like, right, this is brilliant. But I just think it's so important to kind of bite your tongue and just do them little bits that you don't see on TV so well. Kind of don't complain, don't be a complainer, don't go for seconds. Like some people would always go for seconds of food and take more food and fill the bowl more. I just thought eat a bit less, have a few bad nights sleep for ultimately like the greater good later on in the game. And I think that was so important to my game. And I know it's not flashy, it's not big, but it's the groundwork for that was so important for my winning game.
Mm-hmm. So instead of a death by 1,000 cuts, you had a win by 1,000 cuts by doing all the little small things.
Yeah, and as well, like another thing that was quite small that I'd always do, I'd always take, who knows how long it was, to be honest, I didn't have any concept of time, maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I'd sit by the well by myself. And to be fair, looking back, this could look really suspicious, me just going to the well by myself all the time. I'd go to the well, sit there for 20 minutes, I'd drink 2 bottles of water, stay hydrated, I knew it would be important. But I'd also just sit and think and sit and take time to reflect, because I knew that in situations like this, when the heat starts turning up as well, it's so easy for people to get snappy. And I think even Chris got snappy. I understand the lobster trap, which we'll get onto probably, was he done right to get snappy. But I've had a lot of people message me the way you handled yourself with that situation was so good. And it is about keeping your head, not arguing, not getting into these arguments, because I didn't want to cut my ties with anyone, not even people I was voting against. I always wanted to stay, because I always knew there's a chance that I'm voting for this person, but they don't go home. I always knew, even with the Tanuk vote, I was like, there's a chance Tanuk doesn't go home, and how am I I was always thinking about how I'm gonna rebuild if this doesn't work. So sitting by the well by myself, it would just give me that time to, if someone's annoying you, go to the well, don't snap at them, come back, everything's been dropped. And I thought that's, again, just so important to just be aware of that. And I think people like Lee, Chris as well, in a game where the people who you're in the game with are voting for the winner, you have to really watch what you say, because stuff can't be unsaid and stuff can't be undone. So I thought that was really important.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to the merge, and Katon are outnumbered going into it, but you're able to get the votes onto Lee at that point. So how did that all come together with Lee going first?
Yeah, it was a lot of... You knew Lee probably wouldn't have got the votes to win the game, but it was a lot of this individual immunity challenges started to come. And Lee's he's a professional athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a professional athlete. I'm kind of not the best, not the worst, just pretty average with challenges, which is good enough. And that's, again, you were saying about pre-game, I always knew that I didn't want to be the best and I didn't want to be the worst. And in a lot of aspects, you don't want to be seen as a threat, but you don't want to be seen as an easy option. Just kind of being seen as the kind of middle ground. He's all right, good in this game, I think.
Yeah.
And I thought, I didn't really necessarily want to win individual immunity challenges. I know Doug, it was a bucket list type of thing. Fair play to that, I understand that. But for me, it wasn't to win that. So I wasn't desperate to win these challenges. But you're desperate for certain people not to win the challenges sometimes. And obviously with the Lee vote, we didn't want him to win. We knew he was going to be an option. Everyone was kind of on board with it that morning as well. So obviously you see how the challenge planned out. People were soon to end the challenge. The second Lee dropped out. But I had a good relationship with Lee, whereas he even come to me in the episode and he's like, Matthew, I'm going to need your vote tonight, mate. And the conversation before that is me, Tanuk, Ashley, I don't know exactly. We're at the well and I think we all put our hands in and we were like, yeah, we're going to vote Lee tonight, promise. And the next conversation was me being to Lee, yeah, your name hasn't come up to me, mate. So it's just all about, telling people what they want to hear, assessing my options and just reading the room. But everyone knew it was going to be Lee that day, I think. And it was an easy option where Lee didn't even know that Lee didn't understand the kind of the game really, where he didn't know that I voted for him. He was looking from the jury to us, and he was so confused. The next tribal council, I know he spoke, it wasn't very popular online that he spoke, but he was looking over it, really confused to who voted for him, which was good for me because he still thought I was a very close. He thought, well, Matthew probably could never have voted for me. You know what I mean? I feel like he found it hard to understand that people will probably go against you who are your friends. So again, it worked out for me. That was brilliant. Nice vote. As well, it is good to get someone like Lee out at the individual stages of the game because he's strong, really fit. He runs, he boxes, he's a fit athlete.
Mm-hmm. And numbers wise, it's completely perfect for you guys. So
yeah. Kind of, I've got my OG, so the merge come, OG Katon reunited, but I was in this great position where I was kind of quite high up in the Lenena ranks as well as quite high up in the Katon ranks. So these come and I have my connection to OG Katon, but I'm not desperate to be in OG Katon. It's kind of I've had these new experiences. I've got new people as well, but you'd never say that. But I had these options, and it was gonna at the time. It gave us, as original Katon, just that extra. It was the destruction of OG Lenena that worked in our favour, really.
Yeah.
Well, you've talked about challenges, but I have to ask you about the iconic last gasp challenge, where it's you versus a peg leg. So what was that challenge like?
That is one of them challenges that even if you've never watched Survivor in your life, you see that challenge and you're like, well, I've seen that on Survivor. You know what I mean? That is a Survivor challenge. I'd seen it. That was the one that I'd looked at before. I went to the Dominican and I seen that and I was like, there is no chance. This is out of a horror film. This is not like. Why would you want to do this? Like, it really gives me like claustrophobia, like breathless vibes. Like when we seen it, I was worried. Like my face, I was white as a sheet. I was nervous. But again, you're doing it, and it's kind of getting out of your comfort zone is good, and just really taking it step by step. You're under there, and then eventually you can hear Joel at the start, and then all of a sudden you kind of get your hearing gets muffled. You can't breathe. I burnt really badly through the bars. So obviously my nose was sticking out the bars to breathe and my cheeks. And like, if you ever watch it back, the episode after that or later on in that episode, I am so red in the face. Like my face went on a journey. I burned, I blistered. I was like, it got so bad. There's a challenge later on in the game where I'm wearing like a green buff on my head as well as the buff. And I think to people online, like, why did Matthew pack an extra buff? And I was like, obviously I didn't pack another buff, but because my sunburn was so bad on my face, one of the producer buffs that says Survivor on, they had a green buff, that I was like, I really can't go into this challenge with this burn. Like, my face will be messed up, it'll scar. So he chopped the Survivor logo off, give me the buff to protect my head, which was fantastic. But last gasp was just brilliant, and I think it was like a win for me because we all knew going into it that Pegleg was. It was a known fact that Pegleg could hold his breath for like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I really coming second to Pegleg is like a win. I know that sounds weak of me to say, but it was. So when I come out and saying Pegleg, I come out and Joe was like, Pegleg wins immunity. I was a bit like, yes, I'm happy for him. And yeah, and I know Pegleg wanted to. Pegleg wasn't a threat to me at that moment. Even though I had spent probably the least time with Doug and Pegleg coming into this, Pegleg, I knew he wasn't going to vote for me at this point, so I was okay with him being immune, even though he was going to be like the throwaway vote, who we were going to say that we were going to vote for. I was happy for Peg, and it's a book at this moment for Pegleg. But I loved it. That was like me and my family and friends watching it. Everyone thought I was going to win because I hadn't won one at this point. I wish I could have won it just to have that in my locker, you know what I mean? But I think I've done a good job to last with Pegleg so long.
Yeah. And so later on at the end of this episode 10, the plan is to split the votes between Chris and Ashley. And you say in a confessional that you're going to throw your vote. Were you ever actually going to do that, or was that not even like an actual plan?
Yeah, so what it was Tanuk, Nathan, and Lawrence, and everyone like that. They had this hatred towards Chris that, like, I didn't have. He was an ally with me. Me and Chris had these great conversations. We were very aligned in kind of life. We both love like TV entertainment. We're both on that kind of vibe. And Tanuk and everyone was saying, right, so we're going to split the vote on Chris and Ashley. And this is the first time I'd say, like, this is where I started to see like, Tanuk kind of complacent in like she was adamant of what's going to happen. She knows what's going to happen. She's the leader of this. And I was okay with that. Yeah, it's okay because I have a good relationship with her, good relationship with Chris. But they were saying, the fact they were saying to me, everyone, so all of OG Katon were like, right, you vote for Ashley, you vote for Chris, you vote. So telling people who to vote for. And I was thinking, if they knew how close I was with Chris, they wouldn't tell me to vote for Chris. So I was weighing all this up. And I had a conversation with Chris that wasn't caught on camera. It was a conversation walking to the well. I went up to Chris and I went to him because I knew as well one slip up of my tongue or one thing said, and I know it's easy to say stuff was said off camera, and I know that doesn't really count in the show, but I think it's so important to this. And me and Chris have had this conversation. We've met up multiple times in real life, and he's thanked me for this. I said to Chris, if you have an idol tonight, play your idol. And he said to me, I don't have an idol. Started to panic. And that panic to me was like, how do you know I've got an idol? And I was like, right. So I was like, play your idol tonight. And then I was terrified that he was going to go and tell Doug that I'm saying this to him and worried. But my idea was I ended up voting for Chris that night. And that was the only time I wasn't on the right side of a vote. But I was on the right side of the vote, if you know what I mean. Like, Chris didn't go home, but I was actively aware that I was doing that to keep Chris in. But also, I knew that voting for Chris, I couldn't have threw my vote to somebody else because I needed to keep him with the Tanuk, Nathan, Lawrence. I couldn't have burned that bridge because there was too many of them to then maybe come for me, like, why is Matthew not with us? But then I knew that what was in my control was I could vote for Chris, but then also tell Chris to play as idol. I don't really care if Ashley goes home. And it's kind of best of both worlds. And what ended up happened, and it was like stars in the eyes moment. Chris stayed. Chris knew I voted for him, but was also kind of like, thank you for saving me. Chris hooked me after tribal council. You leave the tribal council area, and this is all quite like exciting. We're going back to camp, and Chris just looked at me and just grabbed me like this, and was like, "Matty, I love you, mate." I was like, "Yeah, no problem." He was like, "Thank you for like playing my idol," because he wasn't sure where it was. This is the first time, probably like him and Doug and all that were very confused where it was going to go. They didn't know if it was going to be Ashley, Chris, or Doug, and I wanted to keep Chris in, so I saved Chris is back there, and it wasn't really shown on TV. I don't care if it's shown on TV; like it worked for me in the moment. That's all that matters. And so I think a lot of my game was hard to maybe articulate and hard to show because it was a lot of like you pedal it, like do you know when like you're treading water, it's a lot of leg kicking and a lot of So you look fine, but then your legs are kicking, doing lots of like secret groundwork, and that was the first kind of big thing that wasn't shown for me, but was so essential to my game. And kind of me in the confessional, I'm saying, I like Chris, I like Tanuk. Where am I going to go? And it ended up being perfect. And that is a mad moment for me, even just to relive it now. Yeah. All that ended up working in my favour because Chris could have really come for me. It could have not worked. In the moment, I could have not voted for Chris, but I was bold enough to do that for my game, and it ended up being perfect. Sorry, I waffled there with that one, but
you're good.
I'm trying to relive my thoughts, but yeah.
You're good. I wish that it would have been shown for it being such a pivotal moment in the game
as well.
So
yeah,
but like you try and like can't like as a player and a winner, you can't really think about what wasn't shown. Obviously, like productions just don't want you to say about what's not shown, which I understand. It's a TV show, but it's also like when it's so essential. I think like podcasts like this are so good to like tell your side of the story and really like paint the picture for the viewers and for you guys, because it was an essential bit. And like me and my family watching it, and before the episode even come, I was telling my family what had happened. I was like, well, in this next episode, I tell Chris to play his idol. He plays it, but maybe it wasn't shown on camera. Maybe the camera didn't catch it. And yeah, it's a bit disappointing in that sense that could have been shown, because it really like was a great strategic moment for me. And there's another one coming up as well. I think in the next couple of votes that really, again, it wasn't articulated well, but I understand why, because I know TV, I love TV. I understand why you have to build certain narratives for certain players, because obviously players have rises to a fall, you know what I mean? So I'm aware of it. I'm okay with it. But at least I can tell you guys now, we can all have fun talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then we get to one of the biggest blindsides of the season, where Doug goes home and you and Tanuk are kind of shown as the masterminds of pulling that vote together. So what went into that decision?
Yeah, I really appreciate you actually saying that I was one of the masterminds, because that vote was so put towards Tanuk. Tanuk sent me a message after that episode and said, I can't believe, it was something like, I can't believe they've made that vote look like it was all me. She said, they've made me look great on that episode. I can't believe they haven't shown you being there. So I was the one, Tanuk and all that were wanting Chris out again. And in my head, I was thinking, God, why Chris again? Why does it have to be like, this is kind of getting a bit boring now, because but I had so much like social agency in there that I could drop things in, but because I wasn't maybe in camp, I wasn't shown as this like big leader, and I wasn't, but I was so well socially placed that I could control things without being the leader. So I pulled Tanuk and I said to her, and I brought this up in final tribal council, and Doug will have my back if you wanted to ever mention it to him. And I really thought that I was the mastermind behind the Doug vote in final tribal council. And it wasn't shown again, because that wasn't the narrative that they went with, which I understand why for the show. Okay. But I pulled Tanuk and I said, it needs to be Doug tonight. Because I think Doug, like myself, we're quite liked in there. He's a really nice guy. Like, I'm from up north. He's like Scottish. We kind of had a bit of a connection. He's such a lovely bloke. Like, he liked rugby. I played rugby. And we just had this, like, he was such a salt of the earth guy. And I love him to pieces. And I just knew, though, that would come to a hindrance. It would be a hindrance to me later on. So I thought it needs to be Doug tonight. And I hadn't seen the brilliant game he played, like, throughout Lenena at the start. I hadn't connected. I hadn't spoke to Doug as much as maybe other players, because we swapped and missed each other. But such a great guy, but I knew we had to go. And I said to Tanuk, and what what I done was I kind of said it needs to be dug tonight. And Tanuk was like, you know what? Yeah, it does. Then Tanuk went, told every single person, told them it was going to be dug, told them Doug was going to go. And kind of made it like that was the beginning of the rise to Tanuk's, the big rise to the ultimate fall, which I understand the show. Obviously, when we were watching the episode, you don't know that Tanuk is going home in the next episode. So when I was watching it, at the end of that episode on the Saturday night, I was like, right, as annoyed that I'm so annoyed they're not showing me as this leading the Doug vote, but I also know that they're going to use this. Tanuk in the Sunday night episode, they were saying Tanuk is the queen, she's taken over, and they can't show that. They can't show everyone saying that without showing evidence of that. If you're not, they have to show it for part of the storyline, and it's just how the cookie crumbles, really. But I was a big part of the Doug vote, and Doug even said in his vote confessional for me at the end, he said, and I think if you watch it back, you'll see it. He said, "You got me out of the game. That's why my vote's going to you tonight," and it's true, but. Yeah, Tanuk, not saying Tanuk wasn't a big part in it. Me and Tanuk worked together, but I kind of drip fed it in, and the message Tanuk sent me after that episode kind of is evidence for itself that was true. I don't mind, but it's just,
Yeah. Well, speaking of big moments for you, then we get to the Tanuk blind side, and walk us through how you got this blind side to go off and your biggest move of the season.
Absolutely. So with this challenge, there's a lot of talk. Did Christopher get into my head? Was I aware of things? I think what's good about my game is, and I sound so big-headed saying this, but you have to back yourself and stuff. A lot of stuff that I was doing, it wasn't as flashy as Chris. Like Chris, great entertainer, great TV character. I see that myself. Like he's such a great guy, but also very I knew that flashy wouldn't necessarily mean the best in this game, like with these people. So I knew that Chris comes to me and Chris is saying to me, Tanuk and Nathan are the strongest people in this game. I'm not going to turn around to Chris. I know people might think, oh, it sounds cliche that he's saying this after. I promise this is how it went. And I knew fine well, I could not turn around to Chris and go, you know what? I know they're the two best players in the game. I know they're the top two in the game at the minute. But they're not. I'm in with them as well. Why would I say that to Chris? Because then, especially in a conversation with Chris and Lawrence, I'm not going to say to Chris, I know them two are quite strong. I'm with them as well. Then Lawrence looks at me and thinks, what? So I'm not part of this. Yeah, I had to let Chris, in what was such a big move in this game, it was a big move for me, big move for Chris. But the risk to reward for me was so much greater than it was for Chris in a way of, this fumbles my entire game if this doesn't go. So in what was such an important decision for Chris was also 100 times more important for me because I'm flipping on my entire alliance from day one and it had to be right for me. And again, it comes down to maybe my game not being as flashy and my game not as, like Chris is happy to say Tanuk needs to go, we'll get her out. But for me, it was more than that. It was, I built this from the start with Tanuk. It wasn't just get rid of her. It was, is this right for me? I was listening to what Chris was saying, but also aware that I was again so happy that Pegleg and Hannah and Chris had come up to me and they were saying that Nathan and Tanuk are the solid two. But I knew that we were a solid three. They weren't just a solid two. But you can't say to them that I'm in this solid three. So I have to kind of play the kind of, oh yeah, are they the solid two? Yeah. What really? So am I not in it? No, you're not in this. I'm like, oh please, will you guys take me under your wing? Yes, we will. You vote Tanuk. I knew that would be an ideal big move for me. But it just had to be done right. Lawrence terrified me that night with, he pulls me for a chat and he's like, I've told Tanuk that there's going to be votes her way. And I went, are you joking? You've told Tanuk there's votes coming her way. I went, how is that? And that really started panically. My face in that tribal council, it looked like I'm going to cry. I think I was really I was just sitting there like, please work. Because if it doesn't work, ultimately, I'd probably go home the next episode, realistically. But in that reward challenge, where we ended up winning, taking Lawrence, we got pizza. That's such a great reward, by the way. We got there and you have to sometimes, it's about letting other people feel like they're in control as well, which is, again, it's not maybe great to watch on TV because it's hard to articulate. I could have maybe articulated it better, but I didn't want Lawrence to feel like I was in with Tanuk. Like, I couldn't say something to Chris because then if I say, yeah, to be honest, we need to get Tanuk out because she's going to be, because she's leading the game. And then Chris goes to Hannah Peg, like, or maybe even Tanuk says, yeah, I've been talking to Matthew and he's saying that he's maybe thinking about, I thought, don't say anything you don't want to get out to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I was being very cards close to my chest. And yeah, that was so, it was so important that I got that right. It was sometimes better to be hushed. Like Chris had nothing much to lose at this stage. Like he's kind of been at the target of every vote. I like Chris. I knew it would work for me. I knew a big move would be good for me. Not to say that Chris wasn't a brilliant move from Chris. Credit him so much for that. From being on the bottom to kind of make making himself in a good position, but also there was a lot more to it than just Chris talking, telling me that I knew the stuff Chris was telling me. I knew, but also I couldn't tell him that I knew, especially in front of Lawrence, because then Lawrence would be like, "Well, where am I in this?" So it's just about because I was so socially based with everyone. It was so important to keep stum sometimes and just keep your mouth closed and just let people think that they're bringing you this information when ultimately I knew that, and it ended up being obviously the greatest move of the game and like ideally like a game-winning move, which is fantastic. But this is where I want to give you a bit of exclusive knowledge about that reward. So what no one knows is in that reward challenge, I found an advantage that was never shown on TV because I never played it. And I think, again, I've got it with me now, so I'm going to show you it. It was basically a 50-50 coin.
Oh, wow.
And this was underneath the table of the pizza reward. So what happened was, I got there, before we went, Nathan said to me, just make sure Chris doesn't get an advantage. And again, Nathan clearly didn't know how close I was to Chris as well, because he wouldn't say that to me about another ally. So again, it's good for me that he thinks that. So I was like, yeah, we'll make sure Chris doesn't get an advantage. Okay. So I went, and at this point I was thinking, right, so there's going to be maybe something at this reward. I don't think there's been, I got to a lot of rewards, and for all I knew, there wasn't an advantage at other rewards. So I got there, and I started it was another decision, a micro decision that led to me having, again, a bit of power in the game. On the pizza reward, there was two seats there and one seat there because there was three of us. So two were sitting next to each other, one was by themselves. I thought, I want to be looking at both of Chris and Lawrence when I'm talking to them. I don't want to be sitting next to someone and looking. I think better control over a conversation and better socially to be able to look at two people. So I thought I'll sit here. And then in the napkin of the thing, so inside the napkin was a scroll. So I open the scroll. So I open my napkin, I see it, I pull it under the table. So I was doing this. So people are like, oh, Matthew was manipulated the full time of that reward. Matthew was just, this whole time I was listening to this, I was also finding an advantage and finding clues. I think I'm more clued up than people maybe give me credit for. I was sitting there. Chris and Lawrence will probably be finding this out right now. They didn't know I had an advantage. This is how they'll find out. So I'm sitting there, and under the table, I pull it out. And there's obviously the cameras are on you, and I'm so nervous because I thought, right, I can't be seen to have this. And it's like, it was in the scroll, it said something like, wherever you're eating, you'll find me. And it's like a little rhyme. And I was thinking, right, where could it be? So I started I jumped up and I threw the table, the chair that I was sitting on upside down. And Chris and Lawrence were going, what are you doing? I was going, I don't know, I'm just playing around. And I went over to where the pizza was. I was looking under everything. And then I'm sitting under the table and I'm a bit of a fidgeter. You probably see me. I've always got my cup of tea. I'm always fidgeting with something. And I just feel this Hessian bag underneath the table and my face just went, and I grab it, pull it out, put it in my pocket, zip my pocket up. And then I do a confessional to obviously open it. And I've got the scroll that was in it as well. I kept everything. I'm quite like a hoarder and it's nice to look back at memories. And yeah. You probably won't be able to read it on there, but congratulations, you have found the 50-50 coin. The coin can only be played at Tribal Council when Joel says it's time to vote and before the first vote has been cast. If played, Joel will ask you to flip it in front of the tribe, so it's quite in front of everyone. If it lands on safe, you will be immune from the vote. If it lands on unsafe, then any vote cast for you will not count. Or if it lands on unsafe, any vote for you will count. You may decide to gift the coin to another player, either at camp or at Tribal Council, before the first vote is cast. This 50-50 coin is only valid when there are 6 or more players left in the game. So again, it's given me that kind of, I don't know how many players were left, but it was a few tribal councils, a couple of tribal councils. But again, I think it's credit to my game that I didn't even need to play this.
Right.
And I also knew that, again, for a TV perspective, it's not great, maybe not playing it, but when you're on the beach and that's your vision, playing something like this could come at such a disadvantage as well. I just stand up when I'm already pretty socially well placed. I flip this coin, it lands on unsafe. You maybe don't go home that night, but then your allies and people are looking at you thinking, why did he play that? This is a bit suspicious. So in the final tribal council, I pulled this out and I said, I've had an advantage that I haven't played. Obviously, that goes on. The final tribal council went on for hours, like 2.5 hours, 3 hours. So you're sitting, maybe more. You're sitting there for ages. So there's a lot of content you maybe don't see. And they obviously have to put the content in there as fit the edit, if you know what I mean. So I pull this out and I'm like, I want to flip it. I could have flipped this. I could have given it to someone. This is how I said it. I said, I could have flipped this coin. I could have given it to someone. I could have, there was so many options I could have done. I could have not held my tongue and went and told Chris. But it's all about trust. You have to kind of trust everyone, but trust no one. So even though Chris was an ally, I didn't trust him with this. I think I said once to Chris with the lobster trap, I went, now we've got this idol with the lobster trap, I might also have something that can help us out, so we'll be okay. Whoever you have the idol, I'll be okay. But I never told him what it was because I never trusted anyone with it. So Doug then, as a question, he went, flip the coin now. At final tribal council, I flipped this coin. I was nervous as it was, and I flipped the coin. It landed on unsafe. And I just said, I think the coin's broke tonight. I don't think it works anymore. That comedic thing in such a serious scenario got everyone, even Joel, it got everyone laughing, which I thought was, again, just a great, although I didn't use it, I used it in Final Tribal Council, not as an advantage, but as a kind of as a trophy piece in a way of, look what I've got. Obviously, a great memento now, something I'll always keep. But yeah, I think, again, this is something that wasn't shown, which would have pieced, but I get why it wasn't shown in the first season of Survivor, because it's hard enough maybe to introduce, they would introduce an idol and advantages step by step. And it's hard to explain how it wasn't used, if you know what I mean. It would be easier if I'd used it, they would have probably shown it, but it's hard to explain it when it wasn't used. I get that. I love the producers, the production, the whole team. I get why the BBC and everyone didn't want to use it, but it would have been, again, another string to my bow if they'd put that in, I reckon.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, wow. Speaking of finding things, in episode 13, Christopher finds the key to the laughter trap. I asked Chris this when he was on. How would you rate how you did with the laughter trap on a scale of 1 to 10? It
was minus 1,000. I think it was. I think it was a tragic blunder by me, if we could say that. It was horrendous. It was probably the most vulnerable I'd felt in the game at this point. And considering it was quite far down as well, that was pretty good going. But I thought, oh no, I've done this to myself. I was like, I've blew everything up. I've come this far and it's all over. But kind of step by step with what we've done with that, we found it together. And I said at the time, I was like, I'm going to go because people won't suspect me as much as Chris. And that is... honestly, it's so true. Eyes were on Chris everywhere. He would have went and got the idol, so he would have had an idol. It doesn't really matter if eyes were on him. But me and Chris were kind of this. We were willing to try things, try stuff out together, and me going there was the best option at the time. And I think if Chris had went, there would have been eyes on him, and people would have knew that he had a key, and it would have just really been a bit dodgy. So Chris went and distracted everyone in camp when they were eating the food. I went over there, plodding along, opened it, couldn't believe it was the actual idol in there. And I just thought, right, what? In the spare of the moment, I understand there's been so many talks of filling it with rocks, filling it with sand, taking the idol but keeping it locked. But what I'd done in the spare of the moment was, I'm the only person with the key to this box. No one else can find it. People will still be looking for keys. I'll lock it, keep it shut, go and tell Chris that there's an idol in there, do whatever. and then come back to it in the night. It was going to be, we'll come back in the middle of the night, it'll be dark, we'll get it, and then we'll do that. I just thought that was fun as well. So I went back to camp, and Chris is giving me the eyes from over the other side of the camp. You know, Chris is like dramatic eyes. He was making this, like, this was his moment. And I went over, I was like, but there's me really nervous about people knowing this. I was like, yeah, there's an idol in there. And he's like, oh, there's an idol. Like, he plays this whole like dramatic character a bit on. And just before we knew that, I said, right, we'll go back at night. But I obviously thought I locked it, but just didn't put the clasp, lock it to the clasp. So I shut the door and locked the padlock, just didn't lock it to the, stupidly didn't lock it to the box. But like coming back from that, me and Chris were sorted. We were like, right, we've got an idol between us. Ultimately, I would have let Chris have the idol as well. I do think that if the idol was in there, it would have been given to Chris as his kind of idol. But we both knew that that was our idol. But I would have let Chris hold it because he found it, but we would have shared that. I knew that I had the 50-50 coin as well. So I was thinking, I could be in a really good position here with an idol and a 50-50 coin. And like a really well positioned, like Nathan and Leilani were like, Tanuk just went, but like me and Chris had this solid alliance, Pegleg, and Hannah like really hated Chris as well. So although they just voted together, they also were like, Tanuk's gone and we'll get Chris next. And I was thinking, this is perfect for me. Then everything just come crashing down when it was gone. I just couldn't believe it. Like, you can't write that. I think that's just, that'll always be remembered, that moment. It was horrendous.
So Nathan finds the idol and for some reason decides to tell everybody. So Lawrence is kind of the guy that takes the fall for that. And you managed to get that blowback from the Tanuk vote off yourself, and Lawrence takes the fall. So what went into the Lawrence vote?
Yeah, so this scramble for me was probably I was just like a deer in headlights the full time. I was like, I couldn't relax. And I'd been in such a good position. This was the first time I just felt, oh no, this is going to go so wrong for me. I was just saying like, let's not panic, let's do this. And I was the moment of the season, like looking back, I was standing there with Hannah, Leilani, Lawrence, everybody in camp apart from Nathan. And I was saying, right, who are we going to put the votes on then? We're going to have to split the votes. And then Hannah said to me, who are we going to vote? Who are we going to split the vote for? We're all here. And I was just like, oh, because I knew that it wasn't going to be Chris, as he had the necklace. And I thought Chris would have probably fell out with me if he didn't have the necklace. So that was obviously perfect for Chris. He was okay. So it wasn't a bigger blow for Chris as it was for me. Chris was safe. Nathan was safe. But Nathan just shouldn't have said that he had the idol. Nathan saying that he had this idol, he should have just took the idol, done whatever, and then no one would have knew. So then we would have maybe still put votes on him, because Nathan was the one, that immunity challenge, Nathan was 100%. Nathan can't win this challenge. That was the conversation going into the immunity challenge. Mm-hmm. And he didn't, so it was brilliant. And then Lawrence pulled me and was like, before we knew it was empty, Lawrence actually pulled me and was like, Nathan said he's found an idol. Apparently the box was just left wide open. And I was just like my face was just dropped. I was like, so me and Chris march over. This was just like comedic, like comedy. Looking back, me and Chris were so excited for this. I've still got the key at home as well. I kept that key. That is, I need to cut that key, give one to Chris, one to me, and we did that on the necklace. That key was so fun. But we marched over. Obviously, everything happened. Got back to camp. There was some stupid things, because I feel like sometimes as well, this was the first time I didn't lose my head, but I lost my train of thought fully. I was like, I just lost Tanuk. I just voted her out. I was already like, I had a bit of tension with Nathan and Leilani. I didn't know where it was going to go. I was saying to Lawrence, I had a few conversations with Lawrence, and I said, Lawrence, I promise you, I will never vote for you. Please don't vote for me. I was like, me and you, let's vote for. He was like, who? I went, anyone. Do you want to vote for Leilani? Do you want to vote for Hannah? I said, anyone. So whoever Lawrence said, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Time was running out. It ended up being like a last-minute conversation between me, Chris. Me and Chris had the conversation privately, because we had that too. And then me, Hannah, and Pegleg, I was like, can we vote Leilani? Can we vote Leilani? And they were like, no. Hannah went, I'm never voting Leilani. And I was like, right, Lawrence? It was literally like this impulsive. I was like, Leilani? Lawrence? And they went, Lawrence. I was like, sound. But still, obviously, I wasn't sure that night going to Tribal Council. And we wanted to play it to Nathan. We wanted to give it to Nathan. We really wanted him to play the idol as well, because we didn't want him having it for the next Tribal Council. Mm-hmm. But obviously, he should have knew that we were never going to vote for him.
Mhm.
Because, like, we were never going to vote for him to give him that control. But also, we needed to somehow make him believe, which worked, that we were going to put some votes on him for some reason to make him play it. But we didn't have the numbers to do that. We didn't have the numbers to put the vote on Nathan, to put numbers so Nathan thinks he's going to go home, but also have numbers to vote someone else out. So when Nathan pulled his idol out to go, I was like, to play it, I was just like a sigh of relief to the, right, Nathan can go home next. And that ended up happening, which I think, which was great.
Yeah.
And sadly, I lost Lawrence. And that was the first time I left Tribal Council crying my eyes out. Like, after Tribal Council, before you go back to camp, you're all separated and you're just having like a moment just before you go back. And I was just sitting there sobbing. And I was just thinking, like, who are Lawrence? It's kind of my mistake that sent him home, really. But I was also really happy that it wasn't me. And I was like, right, Chris doesn't have the necklace now. There's no idol in play anymore. It's kind of back to every man for themselves. And I thought that was great. Chris can be happy with me that none of us went home. And I can kind of say to Chris, clean slate now, we're both all right. And then we laughed about it before. Like, right after that, it was more laughing about it. But I feel like if Chris had ended up going home because of it, or I did, yeah, we probably wouldn't be best friends now. but we're good now. All's well that ends well, that's what I say.
Yeah, sure.
So you do vote out Nathan next, and then it's Pegleg. So when Pegleg goes, he casts his vote for you, and you get the one vote that you get all season against you. So how did it feel to get that one vote?
Yeah, like, it's bittersweet. Like, I was so happy that I hadn't got a vote. Getting the one vote, it was kind of like, fair play. I understood that Pegleg. I was in the knowledge that Pegleg wanted to come for me that day by Chris, because Chris came up to me and said to me, Pegleg is throwing your name out there to us. He's saying to us that everyone likes Matthew. He's played like under the radar game. He's done really well. Like, Pegleg read what I've been telling you for the past hour or so. Pegleg understood himself. He'd seen it, and Hannah. I've kind of put Hannah in a dilemma of. Her relationship with Pegleg was so strong, but I really sold to Hannah that Pegleg would win the game. And like, I was telling Hannah that she would have a better chance. Ultimately, she wouldn't. No offense to Hannah, but I was telling Hannah that it would be better for her, for Pegleg not to be there. Where realistically, me not being there would have maybe been better for Hannah as well. Like, they should have maybe got me, I think, at this point. I think this would have been a perfect time to got me. Pegleg was the only one with it. I knew Leilani would never vote for me. And yeah, I just think I played it so well, and you're almost kind of like guilt tripping Hannah to vote for her best friend, which is sad, but it was what needed to be done. Then that leaves Hannah on her own, and then she's not really a threat by herself when she doesn't have that second person. But getting a vote was worrying, because they always make it so suspenseful as well. Like, I really thought I was going to be like going home. Like, in the moment, you don't see all these other conversations, so I'm only trusting that Chris is telling me the truth. But then I did think, why would Chris tell me that Pegleg's coming for me if he was going to go? Like, it would be easier for him to just pretend that it wasn't. So, and also, Pegleg couldn't look at me that full day. Pegleg didn't speak to me that full day he voted for me. He literally could not look me in the eye for the full day, and would not have one conversation with me. So I knew it was coming. This is the day that Pegleg went home, right? When he voted for me.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that day was really interesting as well. Another little exclusive. Pegleg knew that he was in the firing line. And like, you look at someone like Pegleg, it's so incredible. Like, it's inspirational, really. Like, you see, like, there's been other amputees in the past, and Pegleg was telling me about them. And he played such a physically, especially, like, he's an absolute warrior. Doing some of these challenges with one leg is just so hat off to him. But also, when he was going to leave camp, I knew it was maybe going to. I trusted my connections that it was going to be Pegleg, and our fire was going out on that day before we voted Pegleg. Our fire was going out, and I said to Chris, "Where's the flint? I can't see the flint." And and Chris went, "I don't know where it is." And I went, "I think Pegleg's got the flint, you know." So I said to Chris, "Go and ask Pegleg where the flint is." And he went, all right, I'll go and ask him. So he went and asked, because me and Pegleg wouldn't really there was a bit of tension between us because he wanted me out, I wanted him out.
Yeah.
And Pegleg was like, yeah, don't have the flint, don't have the flint. So I stormed into the woods. I was like to Chris, we're getting Pegleg out, but we're not spending the next 3 days without fire. I was like, this can't be an option. So I went in and I pulled out this log, probably the size of it was like 3 times, 4 times like the human length. And I pulled it out of the wood, dumped it on the fire, and I was like, right, we'll just let this burn all night when we go to tribal council. And that saved our fire as well. That kept our fire. And I seen a picture that Pegleg posted online and when it was getting aired, and he had the flint after the show. So he did have the flint, which I think is quite I love Pegleg, but I do think that's quite low to take. It's quite a low blow taking the flint off camp. That's kind of more than just the game. That's kind of just common decency in that moment. But I do love Pegleg, but I just thought in the moment that's awful, really, taking their flint. And the fact I clocked it, the fact I done it, it was kind of like a unlucky mate. You didn't stop us from getting fire. We kept that fire burning, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy that he tried to sabotage you guys on the way out.
I know, crazy.
So you go into the final immunity challenge. Chris ends up winning that, and you manage to survive that vote. I kind of feel like you would have been the obvious choice there, socially connected as you were, but you managed to get that onto Hannah. So, kind of, how was it taking Hannah out at that point and getting away at final tribal?
Yeah, so Chris being immune, my 2 main connections were with. I say that Hannah was so sure that I was going to vote with her that night. But again, that's just with the social connections. But Leilani, I knew that she would never vote for me. She was such a loyalty player, been with her since day one. I just knew it, so I knew that wasn't going to be a vote. My only slight worry was that Chris and Hannah, because Chris being a fan of Survivor as well, I thought he would have or should have took me out the game. But I don't think Chris wasn't socially placed high enough to be able to make them decisions. So I feel like Chris was kind of Chris probably shouldn't have took me to the end. Hannah was saying to me, me and Hannah were on the sit-out bench together. Or not the sit-out bench, but you've just finished the challenge. You've been dropped out the challenge bench together. Yeah. And she was saying to me, so who are we going to vote for? I was like, well, whoever doesn't win it, that's who we vote for. I was like, Leilani drops, we vote for Leilani. Leilani, Chris drops, we vote for Chris. Really feeding that. This is all or nothing now. Get me to that final tribal council. I can talk to an apple about an orange. I can talk all day long. That won't be my downfall. I was like, I just need to get there. And I got Chris winning it. I knew the option was there. I was always over. I would have cut Chris. I would have cut Leilani. I also would have cut Hannah. Realistically, coming into the end, it would have been okay for me. My ideal situation, I can look at it and think, yeah, I could have cut Chris if he didn't win that challenge. But also, I was really concerned about looking, I don't want to say this disrespectfully, but I didn't want to look weak bringing Leilani and Hannah to the final tribal council, where I didn't really think they had the best argument to win the game.
Yeah.
I knew I had a good argument, and I also knew Chris would have a good argument if he played it right. And I didn't want to look weak. And also, I had a great ally in Chris, but I wouldn't have been scared to cut him, and the option would have been there. But I just really didn't want to look like I was taking the easy route out. But obviously, that decision wasn't in my hands. So Chris won that. That was never a decision that you had to make. So it was either Hannah or Leilani. I could have went to Chris and Leilani, and I could have voted either way. Ultimately, I knew that Hannah would have had more jury votes, I think, than Leilani at the end, just with the whole kind of Pegleg. Would have definitely voted for Hannah, and he even said that. I think in the show he said, "Hannah, I'd vote for you if you weren't there, if she was there." So Pegleg, Lee, and Hannah were brother and sister. I thought maybe even Tanuk, she ended up voting for Leilani, but Leilani or Hannah maybe at the end, and then I think Hannah would have got the votes just on a connection base. So it was the right decision. I was ready to go and battle it out in final tribal council because after Hannah went, I was a bit worried in the fact how hard I'd betrayed Hannah. I really promised her a lot of things on that sit-out bench, but you have to at the end of the day. I didn't know where her vote was going to go, but I had to take that risk, and I think sitting next to Leilani and Chris was a good decision for me. But I also think coming back from that tribal council, so me, Chris, and Leilani then going back to camp, and then the next night was tribal. That's how it worked out. The next day was the final tribal council. Coming back, when we just left the set for tribal council, Chris and Leilani were hugging, jumping around with each other. oh, we're finalists. Even though Chris and Leilani didn't have the best relationship, it felt a bit fake to me. They didn't really get on. Like, Chris used the double vote on Leilani to try and get her out. Like, they're clearly not the biggest allies, but they were jumping around like they kind of won it already. But in my head, that was like, when you get to the final 10, you want to get to the final 5. When you get to the final 5, you want to get to the final 3. Got to the final 3, I wanted to win the game. I couldn't smile. I'm a smiley guy, but I couldn't smile and play happy families. Like, I was sat there in camp at the end, even when them two went to bed on that final night, I was just sitting there looking to the fire, just thinking, this is like, there's still a lot of work to be done, and this isn't like, oh, I've got to the final. This is how, right, let's start building what's my argument to win this game. And like, I done it, like, looking at the final tribal council, I done it the best. I backed myself the best, and I think I was the most prepared at that final tribal council. I really was non-stop in my head for that final 24 hours of how I was going to make it work. But yeah, that final night and that final day, as fun as it is that the game's going to end soon, you're getting out off the beach, it just felt like there was like a cloud over my head of like, this is it. It wasn't all like, my heart was constantly going. It was a big moment. Huh?
Yeah. Well, so going into the final tribal, how many votes did you think you were getting, and how confident did you feel that you were going to win?
I knew it was going to be a toss-up between me and Chris to win. I didn't expect Leilani to get many votes. And I just knew that I need to, looking at like the facts of it all, I need to explain my game, the ins and outs and the nitty-gritty bits, which I did, and I knew that Lawrence will vote for me because I had a really good connection with him. And Lawrence coming in and out of tribal council when he was on the jury, like coming into that final tribal council, Lawrence would like look at me and he'd give me a little smirk walking in, and you're reading the room, you're reading people's reactions. So I knew there was never anything. Like, I've been on holiday with Lawrence since the show. Like, we haven't lost any. Whereas, like, some people can take a blindside quite bad, and then some people can take it as it's the game's a game, which I think you should take it like that. But so Lawrence didn't take it bitterly. So I knew that Lawrence would maybe vote for me. Knew that Nathan would have voted for me. I think Lawrence, Nathan, Pegleg, definitely. He really wasn't a fan of Leilani's game, and he really didn't like his stuff. I knew there was votes coming my way, and I just knew it was about winning the other people's votes. So like, I knew it was like winning a Doug vote. You know that Ashley's going to vote for Chris. So like, you just work it out like that, really. The Tanuk vote, I think it could have come to me. It maybe should have come to me. I think kind of maybe Tanuk could have looked at it. You can't tell someone where the vote could have went. That's the thing, to be fair. But I think maybe Leilani, she had a good relationship with her. I did see it would either be me or Leilani for Tanuk. And yeah, I was willing to fight. So how it works is, leaving the camp on the final tribal council, you're obviously all separated. It's like, this is like, you cannot even speak to Chris or Leilani. So I'm sitting there in this kind of, it's basically the middle of the outback somewhere under this tree, and I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking in my head. So I've got 10 fingers. I put 10 points, and I'm thinking, right, I need to label each finger an element of the pitch that I'm going to do. So I started on day one. So I was like going against Rachel, even though she was like my mother, and then it was like tribe swap, and then it was like telling Chris to play his idol. Then it was the Doug vote, and I was just had like kind of like a little riddle or a song in my head where it was like Rachel, Katon Tribe swap, Doug, Tanuk, like just trying to. So I made sure that I hit all the points in the final tribal council. So I thought, this cannot be the moment that loses me the game. Like, I've come all this way not to lose the game, and when it's kind of in my control. So, well, it's in the jury's control, but I can try and control the jury. So I was doing this, and after I'd done my speech, Joel, like the first thing Joel said after I'd done my speech was, and breathe, because and you can probably tell I can talk, and I was fighting, and I was really fighting, and you're thinking about your family back home, you're thinking about everything you're playing for and what it means to you. And I wasn't a fan of the show before I went on, but I think I really adapted to the game, learned the game, and hopefully I'm like, looking back now, I know, like I can hold my own in conversation. Like I won Survivor, like I love the journey that I went on, and it's so nice to have that happy ending with it all. And it's just so like, it's so mad the past like few months since the show. But yeah, I really knew that I would have to win vote, and Hannah threw a bone to me as well, which again wasn't shown because I wasn't the controller of the Doug vote on the edit, so it didn't get shown. Yeah. Hannah went, Matthew, give me one move that you got, that you started, executed, and delivered. And I went, Doug, you're a great guy, mate. It was you. And Doug looked at me as if like, yeah, you done that. And he loved that. Like, Doug loved it. Like, someone was out to get him. Doug loves the fact that someone like seeing him as a threat. He loves that, which I love. I love that from Doug. And I said that, and I said, Doug, I got it. I went to Tanuk. Tanuk even started nodding, and she was like, yeah, you did. And that ultimately led Doug to that voting confessional at the end where he's saying, you got me out the game. And I knew as well, you can't go owning one particular move because, right, even if I'd said the Tanuk move, yeah, big part of my game, and I definitely had to say about it in the final tribal council, with the way the cast was, I couldn't go and be like, Tanuk, I got you out the game, I done this. I knew I would have to give some flowers to Tanuk as well in the way of, you were a big threat. And I think, look, like watching back the final episode, I maybe went a bit too deep with how much I was like brown nosing her at the time. Like I was saying, oh, look, like you were great in the game. But I knew that I would have to give that to settle the blow a little bit because I knew Tanuk was quite hard. You could tell she was annoyed at what I'd done. Because I think Tanuk got very like complacent in the game and really thought that she didn't see that anyone was going to vote her out. And she's admitted this. And yeah, we really, really caught her on the blind side. So I knew I would have to like suck up to people to get to understand how I play. But I also have to own it, and you can't own an individual move fully. But because that move wasn't just mine and Chris's. Hannah voted for Tanuk. Peg leg in everyone, right? I look at it in everyone's life. We're all the main characters in each other in our individual lives. Like we all go off and we all think about ourselves. We'll all tonight go to bed by ourselves, like eat dinner, you know what I mean? And we're the most important person in each other's lives. So the peg leg, that Tanuk move was his move. Yeah. Hannah, that Tanuk move would have been her move because she'd done it and she was in her situation. She's done it. So I think it would have been a disrespect to Hannah and Pegleg as well to fully claim that move as my own. And in Lawrence's head, that move was his because he voted for Pegleg to not vote with Tanuk to ultimately lead to Tanuk going home. So I didn't want to disrespect them because they're also voting for me. So it's quite technical, but it is truthful in what I'm saying. So I think I owned it enough to own it, but also to still get the votes from the other people that were part of it, which is a waffle, but
that makes sense.
Yeah, good.
Makes sense.
So you end up winning, and you get a medal and everything.
I've got the medal.
Oh yes, yes.
Bring it out on the podcast. Got the medal. So I'm not wearing it. I'm not that self-centered. I'm not putting it down. But yeah, that's a medal. It is a nice medal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
I thought it was a good little touch.
I wish more shows like would give out that because that's really cool.
No, I agree as well. I think having something from it, like it's good to collect all the props from camp. Like I've got everything, but like I've brought it with me. I've even got the tree mail sign.
Oh, wow. That's awesome!
Like before the final tribal council, I untied it off the wall. So maybe production don't want to hear that, but I untied it off the wall and I was like, I need this for we've got a shed in the garden. I feel like this. I don't want it to like get rained on though. I feel like maybe in my bedroom, I'll put it above my bed.
Yeah,
but I think the medal's good, and I think it's like I was even saying to like the creative director and one of the big execs of the show, we were on the phone, and I was saying to him, if you ever need me to come back for season 2 and hand the medal over to someone else, get me on the plane, little holiday to the Dominican, I'll take it. But it's fun.
Fingers crossed it's me you're handing it to, so that'll be
good.
Hopefully.
Well, so one of my questions is, if you could pick 1 to 3 words to describe your Survivor legacy, what would those 1 to 3 words be?
In control socially.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely.
Like I feel like I was never on the wrong side of the vote, and really was in a good position throughout. Although I almost slipped up with the lobster trap, I managed to always claw my way back round to someone. I didn't receive a single vote that night on the lobster trap. Literally everyone watching that in my living room, even the edit kind of shown that I was maybe going home that night. you think it's going to be me, but there was no vote, which is like so good. But yeah, in control socially.
Okay. And then my favorite question to ask survivors is, when you think back to your time on Survivor and you close your eyes, what image do you see?
100%. Lying there at night. We spent a few nights sleeping on the beach, and there was one night that me and Nathan were lying there in Kalena, the merge tribe, and it was just me and him. We spoke so deep all night about like our lives and what we do and our families. And that night, I think we seen like 12 shooting stars, which is just mad because there's like no light pollution or anything. It's perfect. And then this big, I don't know what it was, but I'm going to say some sort of like meteor, big gold, looked like a ball of fire in the air, just shot above us. And it was one of the moments where we looked at each other and we were like, if you weren't here, no one would have believed that I seen that. And it was like a magical moment of just, this is what an experience this is. What an opportunity, what an experience. And away from the game, away from everything else, it was just a nice life moment. Like, when can you just sleep on the beach in the Caribbean, like in this scenario, and see that? It was just so lovely, like amazing.
So cool. All right, my final question for you, Matthew. If you're on social media, where can people follow you?
Yeah, definitely. So it's Matthew Haywood X on Instagram, Twitter, Matthew Haywood on Facebook. TikTok, though, is probably my main platform at the minute. I'm doing lots of social media content over there, lots of adventure stuff, spending the night in like random places. It's quite fun, lighthearted. I just love entertaining. Like, that's kind of my dream. And just yeah, I'm just trying to live life to the full. New experiences every day. Getting out of your comfort zone is important. Yeah, so Matthew Haywood X on all social media platforms. And yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. This has been really fun, Matthew. Thank you so much for coming on.
You. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this chat. It's actually been great. Really, really living it, and like step by step going through every episode is just perfect. Love it.
Yeah. Well, so that'll be it for this interview. Definitely check us out for more Survivor content on our channel. And with that, we'll see you all next time on the Tribe of Nerds.
See you later.